But what we're here to talk about tonight is an opportunity to transform an area that has a whole lot of pavement right now into an area that is much greener and much more park-like for all of you who live locally and for anybody else who's visiting us. So we have our design team here, and we have a number of members of the Hudson River Park Trust staff. We have members of Hudson River Park Friends, and we have at least one Hudson River Park Trust board member here also to listen in about your comments and your feedback for us. So I'm going to introduce Tom Adams, who is the project manager from the trust for leading the session.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Can you hear me as well? Or can you, okay. So my name is Tom Adams. As Marie mentioned, I'm the project manager for the 29th and 46th Street project. It's really the last section of uncompleted section of the park, one of the last uncompleted sections. And we met with you, many of you, in January for a very well-attended community meeting to kind of hear about what you wanted to see in the northern section of the project area. We're kind of doing the project in phases. So the area in front of Piers 81, 83, 84, and the street areas within 84. And we got some really good feedback from all of you, and the team has been busy at work gathering information, synthesizing what we heard. And so I'm joined tonight by Jadiel Rivera, Yao Tong, and Eduardo Ginas from Marble Landscape Architects and Architects, who are going to walk you through the project area, kind of give you a quick refresh on the project area for any of you who kind of aren't as familiar with the site, talk about what we heard, give you some ideas about opportunities and inspirations for the project area, and then also talk about some conceptual design ideas that we would like to advance and get your input on so we can move design forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jadiel, who's going to walk you through the project.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Noreen, and Hudson River Park Trust for having us here. You guys hear me well? Fine? Okay. Welcome tonight. I think that we have had great discussions with you in the past couple months, and we are very excited and happy to show to you like what we heard and how that is starting to get translated into our design. So let's start with a little bit of the overview of the overall project site. We're talking from 29th Street to 46th Street, but the focus of tonight and the focus of the workshop that we did with you in January is on the northern section of this project site. So we're looking around this area, so Pier 84, Pier 83, and Pier 81, and the reason is because we're doing this project in phases and we're starting from north to south, more or less. Marble, we are an landscape architecture, urban design practice. We were able to put together a great team of sub-consultants that are working with us on this project. This project has a lot of layers to it. So, we have great transportation engineer, traffic engineer that has helped us do a little bit of traffic analysis in the area. Formerly Sam Schwartz, and I was T.Y. Lin. We're working with 9 engineers, civil engineers that are very experienced in waterfront in New York City, and we have worked a lot with them. Matrix in the World, Great Ecology, and many others. So, all of us together, a lot of experience in New York City waterfronts. So what about tonight's meeting? So tonight we are going to do a little refresh on the project area, which I just walked by, but just a little bit more. Summary of what we've heard from the community and the engagements that we have done so far. Design and program inspirations for each of the zones within the project boundary that we're talking about tonight. And conceptually design ideas to consider. And at the end we'll open up to questions and feedback from you. So where are we today? We are in the concept design development phase, and we have been very busy working a couple of things in parallel. One, the first one is doing the community input sessions that we did with you. We presented to the community board in July of 2024. We came back to the community and created a community input meeting on January 15th, and we did a workshop there where we talked about specifics of each area within this project boundary. and we're here today to hear more feedback from you, right? At the same time, we were having meetings and a lot of engagement with city agencies and other stakeholders that are a part of this project, either because they are tenants, concessions, or long-time standing stakeholders of the area, to understand the complexities of this zone. Right, this is not a simple project. There's a lot of agencies involved. There's a lot of layers to this site. And lastly, we've been working on site investigation. So we've done topographical survey, utility survey. We have been going around the site and documenting each element photographically, but also doing site analysis. We have been doing a traffic analysis together with TY Lin to understand the traffic complexities of this zone as well. So the focus area, so you see in magenta, again, the larger project, but we are focused on this northern part. So what you see in magenta are the 5 zones that we focused during the community workshop that we did in January. So, and we looked at it in the context of what's happening around, what are the things that are the places that this segment of the Esplanade is connecting, what is missing in the neighborhood. And we sort of brought this to you as a way to say, like, what is it that you need? What is it that you're looking for that this piece of Esplanade can do? And complete what's happening already around the neighborhood. We divided that workshop into 3 parts. The first was an introduction of the team and an introduction of the project site. Then we split it up into 9 different tables, or 8 different tables, just 8. Around 8 to 10 people per table. So we had around 70 people that participated in that workshop. And we talked about the site and collected ideas from the feedback. And then we had at the end a report back. So each table reported the priorities that were identified at the table and shared with the larger group. So you all heard what was discussed at each of the different tables. Let's look quickly at the different zones that we focus on. We split it into 5 zones. The first one, we started at Pier 84, but before jumping into the area that we're actually intervening, we also looked at what's there today and what works, and what is it that you like about what's there, and how this particular zone of Pier 84 works in relation to what's already working and great about Pier 84 today. So, all this blue are things that are there, are things that are going to remain, and the work that we are, so the pavilion is remaining, the water feature is remaining, the great lawn and sort of jazz festival area, the boathouse, that's remaining. The dog run is remaining, the community garden is remaining, and we're going to focus on this zone here, which is a water play area that's underutilized, hard to maintain, is not in use, and needs rethinking. Right? So we ask you what you would like to see there in that zone. We then also, in zone 2, focus on the area around the water feature and in front of the pavilion building facing the water. And again, talked about what you would like to have there and see there, keeping in mind that the water feature will remain in place. Then we also talked about the back of the building, or what appears to be the back of the building, and that was something that we captured, from talking to all of you, right? That the building this is the back. It's an area behind it, or between 9A and the waterfront and the pavilion, and it's an area that's confusing to navigate. It's not clear circulation, and it has a lot of potential, and we discussed that as well. The zone 4 is a stretch of Esplanade between Pier 81 83, and a little bit north of Pier 83 as well. This is a significant Esplanade area in between the two Circle Line piers. This area sees a lot of traffic in terms of people walking, joggers, school visitors, and it sort of changes in character throughout the year depending on the season, right? So you see moments there where that piece of Esplanade is a little bit more empty, but you also have the same in other times of the year where like there's a lot of school kids coming, and it's an area where like people do a lot of queuing to go into the boats, a lot of people waiting and gathering and waiting for their families and friends, right? So how do we deal with that, knowing that this is a great asset that an amenity that we have in Circle Line, and how do we accommodate this fluctuation in usage? I know the area, we also told you at the workshop that we're focusing on the magenta areas, but we also wanted to say that there's this other area that's in gray where the orange lines are in there, and those are sort of vehicular access points that are required for the functions of the piers and the park itself, and there's MTA bus station and a couple of other things there that we're studying separately from what we studied during the workshop, right? So there's a separate study that we're doing to analyze how we can make those areas also more efficient, and that also requires a lot of coordination with city agencies. So the focus was on the magenta zones. Great considerations, the existing features, the bicycle lane, the traffic area that I just discussed, that's kind of, needs a separate analysis. The main entrances to the piers and access points at the pier that are important zones that we need to consider. The Esplanade width that varies from south to north, wider at the south, and gets a little bit narrower in the middle. And then the idea that there is this contiguous waterfront Esplanade that faces the water, that the preference is always to put people and put the Esplanade right next to the water. So how do we get to that was many of the things that we were discussing during the workshop. So we had this board at each table, and we asked you a series of questions. We collected feedback and input with post-it notes. We had also inspiration images that you looked at, and we marked up and placed in the map to get feedback from you on what you wanted to do. We went through each zone separately, so we collected feedback from each table for each of the zones, the 5 zones. And we tallied that. We gathered around 300 written comments that day. That was great. So what were some of the common themes that came out of that workshop? And this is more related to, the overall, right? What are the things that were discussed in general about this space, right? So, we talked about the need for more green space and the need for more shade and seating areas. We talked about the idea of creating a park-like experience that could extend from other areas of Hudson River Park into this zone as well. An area that serves all users, residents, visitors, tourists, commuters. We talked a lot about multi-generational play. Some people, focus on, let's say, kids or seniors, but I think the discussion sort of surrounded, it was revolved around the need for intergenerational mix, right? So spaces for multiple generations. Green and sustainable design was mentioned a lot. Improve safety and reduce conflicts between the different modes of transportation that collide in this zone, buses, bicyclists, pedestrians. Buffer 9A noise and traffic and with topographical changes. We're mentioned, improve access and attraction, and and organize better the circulation in this area, and integrate signage and improve wayfinding in the zone. We also tally, these are more like adjectives that were mentioned throughout all this, what are desired qualities of the space, starting from, a shaded space, something whimsical, something playful, something active, something inclusive, something safe, something that's educational, a destination, a place that is nice to be, brighter, topography, eco-friendly. These are all great adjectives that have helped us inform ideas for the concept. Diving into each of the individual zones, because we were able to tally what you asked for at each of the 5 zones that we divided the area. If you look at zone 1, in terms of the opportunities that you identified, increasing green space and shade was a priority in this zone. This idea of the multi-generational play was mentioned a lot in zone 1, probably in relation to the current program that's there, that's maybe more catered to kids, right? And the idea that this space could welcome more than just kids. Accommodate a wide variety of park visitors, sustainable and innovative design, an educational space, and something whimsy and fun. What could that look like? So, kind of gather a series of precedents that speak to the qualities that you all sort of mentioned for this zone, right? So, more traditional play with art, or an outdoor educational space, the integration of a native garden in this zone, the idea that you wanted more green is considered there. Nature and discovery, so the mix of nature and play was also something that you guys mentioned a lot. The idea of gathering and some idea of some kind of artistic lighting. Okay. So these are kind of inspirational images for what we are aiming to, or what we heard from you, and we're aiming to translate into a concept for zone 1. If we look at zone 2, in terms of opportunities, this is the area right around the water feature and in front of the concession building. Reduce paving, the paving extent. That's a very wide area of just paving, so reducing that, and the counter to that is making more green space, right? Provide a variety of seating, increasing greening and tree planting, include adult fitness and multi-generational play in this zone as well, and clearly define the Esplanade. What is that? What is defined as the Esplanade? A division between that and what is passive and active recreational space. So again, what are the typologies of spaces with the inspirational images that relate to what you told us for zone 2? Waterfront seating, so bringing some of the character of what you see in other areas of Hudson River Park into this piece of Esplanade with the benches, the trees, including the waterfront railing, as something an element that repeats in this area. It doesn't happen today. Include the introduction of shaded seating, seating by planting, so there's an immersive environment between nature and gathering. The idea that one of these areas in this zone could have an outdoor fitness or other sort of more active option, flexible seating, and that's the outdoor fitness and cancer award. So something like that I think was mentioned a lot during the workshop. Zone 3, which is in between 9A and the building, the area that feels like a little bit like the back of the building. What you guys mentioned a lot during that workshop was the creation, of, again, the maximization of the space in terms of using green space, right? So, active and underutilized, this area is active and underutilized and unwelcoming section of the park, so how we convert it into this extensive paving into a green space. We talked a lot about green infrastructure, such as the opportunity for potential rain garden in this area that transform this empty, underutilized space into an opportunity for more green. Provide quiet and contemplative nature trail that is distinct from the Esplanade, so it's something separate from the Esplanade. Provide some more welcoming social seating and incorporate local history. It's through signage and wayfinding, right? So what are the inspiration images for that zone? The idea of introducing a nature walk maybe in combination with a potential rain garden in there. The idea of having native vegetation but also a contemplative space, right there, this one. The integration of interpretive signage, as the signage as answer board, which are very educational. And again, lighting areas that deal with safety, but also creates a whimsical space right in the back. All right, so opportunities for Zone 4. This is the stretch of the Esplanade in between here, 81 and 83. So install waterfront Esplanade to HFPT standards. So that's where we bring the benches, the trees, the lighting, the paving that reflects, this idea of an Esplanade, that extends from other parts of the park, increasing the greening, tree shading, improving safety by better organizing how people move through the space, providing flexible seating, picnic areas for both park users and Circle Line customers. So we have to also take into consideration that there's a lot of moments in time that a lot of people are going to be here. So where do they gather, where do they stop, where do they pause, and how do they allow other people to continue to move and flow. And provide fun and whimsy. You guys wanted that a lot in the park, and we totally get it. It's very much needed. So again, inspirational images for Zone 4. You're very familiar with many of these. Something that creates interactive activity for all ages. Lounge seating opportunities. All age imaginative play, which introduces sort of playful elements into the landscape. In this case that we're showing here, kind of like a labyrinth. But there's other ways of play, and we will ask you later on today that what are the ideas in terms of playful areas you may have. The picnic grove as a way to sort of collect people that are waiting for getting into the Circle Line, informal play, and then sort of creative interpretive paving that we could use in this area. The last zone is Zone 5, and this is the widest segment of the Esplanade in this portion of the project. I believe this is around 85 feet in width. So what we heard is that this is the widest section. This offers the best opportunity for more green, or making this feel more like a park. So more trees, more lawn, more plants. Obviously, a segment of the Esplanade that will be contiguous, but this is an area that's open and available for making this area feel more like a park. So inspirational images for that. An active lawn, gathering under the shade of trees. We have this here 84, but this is another moment where that could happen. And people love to do that in Hudson Park. Hybrid lawn and gardens, and a grove of trees, or a group of trees that you can sit under. So, in summary, a collection of inspirational images that resonated a lot with all of you and the people that came to the workshop. So how do we start translating that into a concept design, right? So we evaluated a couple of things, right? took into consideration everything that we heard from you in the workshop. We also took into consideration the site analysis that we did and the site investigations that we did, and the feedback that we're also getting from, you know, the city agencies, the trust, and, you know, all of that together, right? To start putting together all these ideas together into a concept that responds to all of you and responds to all the requirements of the site. So starting from, you know, ensuring that we have a contiguous esplanade and a clear and defined circulation. That was step one. Step two, looking at the two moments in front of Pier 81 and Pier 83 as moments they have a lot of like conflict in traffic, so expanding that so that we can provide adequate space for people to move and safety, and provide safety, you know, in those moments where, like, you know, vehicles are entering but people are moving through, right? Maximizing green, that's, you know, we heard that loud and clear. This area needs to feel and look like a park, so taking then the other space as you know, potential areas for more green and opportunities, but also then identifying areas of that in which we can carve out for passive or more active recreational spaces, or, you know, for people to gather or use, right? So so this shows the concept plan in full as, you know, where we are today. You know, again, hitting big goals like maximizing green. I think we're doubling the amount of green space, or more than doubling the amount of green space. I think we went from 10% of green to 90 of hardscape to almost like less than half of hardscape now, and more green, right? So that's what we're showing in this plan, while still offering areas for people to gather or exercise, areas for people to potentially queue and wait away from the main circulation, providing a contiguous sort of esplanade experience and maximizing that space over there that has a lot of width for both green but also like a flexible lawn space. So here's where we're gonna want, you know, the discussion to continue today, and we're gonna look at each zone and you know, kind of like have a little bit of discussion about what's happening at each of them, right? So zone one is where we identified as the nature play area. I think we have a couple of inspirational images on the side of what we are thinking happens there. So, you know, questions that, or this potential discussion points that we have there. You know, do we do a pollinator play area in here? Do we add more play for all ages in this zone? Or do we prefer more areas that are a little bit more flexible and open for gathering, right? So think about, you know, from what we are sort of seeing here on the side, if what we're showing right now aligns, or if there's something that we can add or tweak to improve that zone. Sorry, this table is wobbly. In this zone 2 area, that's where we are placing right now an outdoor fitness area in response to many of the asks that you had during the workshop. So, you know, again, questions around this zone is that if this is the best location for the adult fitness area, and if, you know, if there are other features that we would like to see here instead, and is there any other ideas that you'd like us to consider for this zone surrounding the, you know, the water feature and the boardwalk on the side. Zone 3, which is behind the building, between 9A and the building. The idea, that's where we're showing the idea of the rain garden and this sort of nature walk experience, maximizing green, introducing green infrastructure, and creating sort of more secondary sort of pathways. So your Esplanade experience is more towards the water. This is a secondary pathway that takes you through a more natural environment. Questions there? It's it's a good opportunity for a significant green space, if you agree with that. And if this is an area that we can use also as an educational opportunity with more interpretive signage. We go to zone 4 for discussion. This is the area that the stretch of Esplanade between 81 and 83. We have the more standard Esplanade right in front of the water, but we have this zone here in the middle where we see as gathering space, we see as potential picnic grove, we see as potential area for games, and other or increased garden area. So again, the question there is how do we balance these things? Do we prioritize maybe more games? Do we prioritize more gardening and green areas? And if you have ideas also for the type of games that you would like to see in this space. And then zone 5, that's the area where we're calling the lawn and the garden. We are creating a buffer of more dense planting between 9A and the bicycle and the Esplanade, and providing as much of a flexible space there in the form of a lawn. We're also thinking that this is an opportunity for actually doing a little bit of topography where this could be a tilted lawn, or facing the water, or we can introduce more trees in that zone and maybe increase the idea of the picnic grove, or the tree grove, like that image down there. So these are, again, ideas that we are thinking about for this zone, and conceptually, this is how we are identifying them, but we would like to hear from you also if you, again, have a preference for one or another. So, again, overview of the plan with some tags identifying what we are intending to do in each of this zone. Just highlighting that community garden remains, dog run that exists remains and is integrated into the design as well, and the water feature remains as well. So we can open it up for discussion and questions. Yeah.
Along the entire zones, are you proposing some greenery along the river south? Is that what you're showing here? We're focused on areas a little bit away from the river. I just want to be clear on what I'm looking at.
Yeah. So this area here is around 20 feet wide, which is the standard typical width that we have in other stretches of Esplanade in Osmer Park. In many of those instances, you have the railing, you have like a few feet in front of it, and you have benches and you have trees. So what we're showing there is opportunities for that condition to happen, right? So with trees in there, maybe it's not an open planter, but it's definitely a line of trees, and that provide shade.
So the area that's called the rain garden,
Yeah.
currently, from my perspective, that area I find to be kind of unsafe. And I think it's because it's blocked by that building, and there's several homeless people that sit in that area. So my thought is by creating even more coverage, I find that makes it even more unsafe. That I'd rather that maybe put the activity back there where there's going to be several people there at one time versus walking solo through trees that are hiding you even more. So that would be my opinion.
Thank you.
Totally agree with that. And
You agree with that? Yeah.
Love the rain garden. I just don't know if that's the right location. Yeah, I would switch it with the fitness because there's gonna be a lot of people there and it's open and feeling more safe. And if you're a single person walking through there that's covered with trees and it's blocked by the building, so no one can see if they can.
All right. Thank you for this.
My name is Kevin, I'm with the trust. I'm not the design construction. Just wanted to make sure that we know what the rain garden is. And know where we want to already exist and where we want. If you go to Gansevoort Peninsula, the building that's at Gansevoort Peninsula, the existing roof, there's a rain garden in the northeast corner. And it's not trees, they're low corners. So we're specifically thinking, your comments will stand, it's something you need to think about. But the topography is rolling and low, and the plants are about waist high and lower. So the idea is that people really can't hang out in that vegetated area. It's kind of uncomfortable to hang out. The idea of having a new boardwalk that cuts through it might be a good idea without speeding it to kind of travel more like a nature path. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, no, I was envisioning that higher trees and more foliage.
I mean, that's a great comment. I mean, if we do go that the rain garden route, it's more in line with what Kevin is explaining and trying to keep it as open as possible. Yeah.
Since I started talking, there's one other thing I'd like to know. I know you mentioned it, but it kind of maybe wasn't as clear as it should be. There's 400% more permeability in this concept than there currently is. So right now, it's basically 90% asphalt, and so we're removing 30% of that asphalt. I'm not sure that math checks out. But let's just say there's 4 times as much permeability in this concept than there currently is. And that does a whole lot of things for resiliency, for sustainability. All of the surface, whenever it rains in this area, all that water just basically goes into the river. By improving the permeability and adding this rain garden is included in that, we're going to absorb all that water. We're going to have green plants that in turn will reduce the temperatures around there, provide shade, but also just the idea of capturing the water, create a cooling effect. And there is also going to be this concept, at least we excavate as it's drawn there, 3 times more trees than currently exist. Those are, I want to just be sure that we say that because it's one of our real goals here, is to de-asphalt the area and increase the plantings. And all these inspirational photos that you see, they're all kind of lush schemes, and that's kind of where we want to head. Allison.
And you can also, I just want to say, you make a really good point about security and safety. That was one of the things we tasked the team with when we started, is that the area currently, we recognize it feels like Baldwin, it's not a place you want to linger. So we're trying to create something that's green and trees of permeability goals, but it also is an attraction for park users. So
Right.
kind of, we might have the general Esplanade where we have runners and people commuting to the park, and that walk is more of a kind of a special area like we have a similar boardwalk sort of condition in Tribeca that is quite popular. And just trying to create these different sorts of feelings in this area, trying to be something for everyone. But the safety and security issue is foremost, and the team, however we receive, these are concept idea directions. We have to work all of that out as design.
Yeah, there's the other component, which is the educational component that will come with it, right? So then you create a space that is attractive to people to sort of walk through that experience, to learn, that can be attached to that idea as well. So opening it up more, keeping green, the opportunity for greening, but also making it a space where people want to pass by and walk and learn that would change completely the character compared to what it is today. Anyway.
I don't know, like currently the back of that building is just like solid. I don't know if it's the back of the house or the restaurant, but if you were to tell, at least probably not in your store, but if they could put windows in there, so there's people in there, and then you kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in for a second. We agree, it is not in their scope. It's probably a future goal, but it's a crazy weird building with all the doors. Let's roll on that. We would like to make it look better.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for the idea, we did hear from people the last time, we may not be here tonight, that there is a lot of waterfront history everywhere in Massachusetts Park. But can we actually go back to some of the precedent images that no matter what we can do in scope is disguise some of those doors. And that's where the interpretive panels in part come in. We have found the ones in Gansevoort, which, by the way, if you don't know where that is, it's just south of 14th Street and south of the law. You know where that is. So this is the rain garden. That is a picture that makes it look absolutely enormous. It's probably, it is smaller than what we could create in the new site, but this makes it seem like this is all high, I think, but in fact, it's very low, and it's sort of depressed. But our operations team would agree with you about many of your observations. And what has to happen is there's design, there's your opinions, and then there's our people that actually have to take care of whatever is built and think about security and so forth. So that layer needs to get added no matter what, too. But these are the interpretatives that we're talking about. Obviously, these are things that were sort of local to that geographic zone, but this area would be local to this area's history. And I think it's a possible way to make that building look a little bit better.
But to add to that point, I'm curious if there's been any consideration in helping that building be more visible so that businesses that may use it as a concession can actually succeed, because there has not been a successful business, which would also contribute to safety concerns for many years.
We agree. So we have been doing some separate code work on the building right now, which is behind the scenes in part to prepare it for another request for proposals for a future cafe operator or something like that. Otherwise, though, the hope is that actually not having a barren plaza directly east of it and having more green and a nicer overall atmosphere, and then some proper signage and other things like that would help.
So would an east-facing entrance also increase the visibility?
Possibly, but it's a very weird building, and then you lose space because of the doorways and other things like that, so we sort of need to look at that.
Yeah, hey, I'm David. I'm the chair of the Block Association, 45th and 46th Street. I just want to say that I went to the Intrepid meeting, and I just wanted to tell you guys, that should be the model that everybody in the city, from elected leaders to everything else, uses to engage with the community. You guys did such a good job with that. It was so engaging. It was really evolving. So first of all, great job with that. It was very thoughtful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
This is also very thoughtful. One of the things I just wanted to see, and I know you guys have considered this, but one of the things in our neighborhood is that we do have some elderly folks, people with mobility issues. I know they would love to get over there. So the park itself, having spaces where if somebody has a mobility issue, if somebody is older or has kids or walkers or those kind of things, that they feel safe going over there. So I love the idea of play spaces and things like that, but also spaces where those folks can feel like they can get around without, worrying about somebody flying into them or whatever.
Yeah.
So that would be wonderful. And I don't know how to solve this, but of course, crossing the highway, you have a 30-second light, right, which goes very quickly. I've walked that a million times, and it's I barely make it across in 30 seconds. Then you have that immediate bike lane. So those two things are challenges for kind of everybody, but if you have mobility issues, they're even a bigger challenge. And I would love for people who are in the group to know, yeah, there's a way for us, when I get there, that I can cross that street and get in there and have a space where I can also enjoy it. So that's just one kind of overarching thing. And just one other thing real quick. The fitness place, we kind of are stewards of Matthews Palmer Playground, which is right over here. they put a fitness area in there. And the fitness area is just really weird. There's some fitness stuff in there that I don't know what it is. There's wheels in there and stuff like that. So it becomes a very underutilized space because I don't really know what fitness you do there. So if we did do fitness, I would just say, could it be stuff that is actually, like very purposeful for the kind of folks who do that kind of outdoor fitness, which tends to be more bar focused.
This is like in the two extremes, because we have worked with identifying that there's like two big groups, right? Like sort of the younger crowd, like they're actually doing like all fitness and CrossFit kind of scenario, and then there's the seniors that you were saying that they have a completely different requirement, and like the sort of mobility and the equipment is a little bit more and sometimes people tend to mix those two into one space, and it doesn't work, right? So you have to kind of be mindful where you put them.
I don't mean to keep bringing up Gansevoort Peninsula.
Yeah.
That was my project, so it's bad as my baby. But we have an adult fitness area in that location, which is really successful. One of the things we didn't want to do was put anything with moving parts that breaks within a week of being used. So the equipment is actually on the lower left-hand corner. It's for ages 12 and up, so it's not all ages, but it's really designed to be creative. So if you want to do pull-ups, you can pull-ups. If you just want to, sit and lift yourself, you can do that. It's really almost like adult play equipment, and it's really successful. We have a lot of, every time I'm out there, I see groups. This I actually took this photo, but it happened to be on a cool night that had been raining earlier. We still had about 5 or 6 people using it. So in terms of being used, I'm not concerned about that. Other questions, yeah, we can hear them.
Was that always there when that part started, or is it,
Was
it phased in?
when it was the phase 2, so when the park opened in October of 2023, that was still being built. So this opened spring of 24.
Okay, I've never seen it.
It's right near the FDNY facilities. They have it too.
Could you just mention the park with the exercise equipment that you don't like? Which?
Main Avenues, you think?
Matthew's Farms, right, just down here.
Okay.
Oh, check it out. Yeah, you just walk down, it's right between 45 and 60.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to say, first of all, we do live in Hell's Kitchen, but a lot of us get around, so I'm very familiar with Gansevoort Park. You do a wonderful job there. However, I've passed that fitness corner and I looked at it and I went, gee, what a waste of space. I mean, here's the thing. We have so little space up here on this Esplanade, and I respect that you're trying to address everybody's post-its, but you have to go back to that adage of sometimes less is more. And I don't necessarily think that we have to try to put games and fitness at every location along here. I mean, we do have a period 4 right there, which already accommodates those uses. And one thing I would say is that this stretch that you're designing runs parallel to the bike path, which is heavily circulation. Plus we have the circulation along the Esplanade. So we have the sliver here. What's wrong with green space, lush landscaping? I think the rain garden, understanding how you describe it, is really a terrific idea to sort of mitigate the almost hostility of that barren space and that blank wall. So I would encourage you to maybe take a step back and look at a little bit less is more, and not try to program every spot. I mean, if you look at our great parks like Central Park, which is vast, a lot of it is just sort of trying to emulate landscape. And I think that's something we're bereft of on the west side here, at least in this section of Hell's Kitchen.
And I just want to add to that, I know on Community Board 4 and Parks Committee, a lot of our problem hotspots, not often, but sometimes, are adult fitness areas. It's more, I don't say more often than not, but it does come to our attention a little bit more than maybe Southwest, but the adult fitness area, especially when it's not in use, sometimes it's problem hotspots.
What do you mean by that? When you say problem?
Just like mean activity that people hide, like people activity that's there that shouldn't be, not for that use, I guess, or just congregations that maybe people, like you were saying, some safety concerns. I don't wanna say that that's the case necessarily for this, I don't think that it would be, but, or it may or may not be, but that it just isn't, is not for its intended use sometimes.
I'll just say that the council member had offered to put fitness equipment in McCaffrey Playground, which is on adult fitness equipment. And everyone said, no, that's not what we need here, but we do need some trees and green and, other activities, so thank you.
I have a hand over there, and was there one over here, and then you. Alright.
Okay, so since I'm experiencing possibly the fourth or fifth iteration of Pier 84, which is hilarious. I mean, I did my running on the old dilapidated pier back in the 70s. Okay, so I have history with that waterfront. And I mentioned this briefly at the meeting with the instructor. I've said this for decades. Many people don't realize, in terms of history, Pier 84 was where the ferry operated without the side of it. Pier 84 has a history. That was pretty much the first step for many who came, and I've said it to Gail, I said it to other politician friends. I'm surprised there never been any kind of signage or something pointing that out. I know it's not about the recreation, but in terms of New York history, and I'm very much a part of that history. I mean, my family is of this, I love this neighborhood, my family is of this neighborhood. And so in terms of that important history, is there any thought
Yes.
about some kind of...
Love that.
And I would be a big mouth to promote that, okay? So my family would love that.
So we have done different types of history panels in the park. We try not to do just the plain plaque on the wall. We try to make them livelier with either great photos that draw you in or hand illustrations.
Some
things.
kind of
So we have,
indication.
in our archives, we have, historic working groups and others that have worked in the past identifying ideas for things that might be interpreted in our language, on the walls. That sounds like a perfect one, frankly.
Yeah.
But there are other things, like the Normandy was an enormous vessel that murdered the dog a couple of years
All
north,
that,
right?
yes,
Things
all
like
that.
that are the types of things that deserve to have their story told and live on.
And it doesn't have to be like the big posters like in Chelsea Piers and all that. I mean, that's a little too much, but
Yeah, no,
some kind of, important New York history.
I
History, hello.
I think people are interested in that too. We like it draws people in and people actually, especially in the
On
town
a
of
personal
Israel.
note, I find it really kind of symbolic that that's such a part of my life, my work, that's where, families are, right? That's the step.
And thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
done.
Thank you.
I'm sold.
Okay.
My comments about the area and the areas in front of Pier 81 and 83, where you're proposing more sloped lawns and more plantings there. So in my experience, that's, and you mentioned it, is area where a lot of people are queuing for the boats and people are running and walking. It gets quite congested there. With the plans that you propose, you do shrink some of like the circulation area of where you can pass through. So I just want to make sure that we're providing enough space in that for the congregating, the pass-throughs, because there are areas of the southern part of Hudson River Park that does get really congested for runners and everything. So
I think that we had a lot of conversation with like the stakeholders, like I mentioned before, with Hudson River Park about this area, right? Like right now it's like very open and kind of loose and very on the fly, right? So everyone goes everywhere, you don't know where to walk. So part of it is like really defining the circulation, like it works really great. The width that the rest of the Esplanade has in other parts of the park works really well. We have a little bit more width here, so then how to create the spaces adjacent to that, so that you actually like tell people that are waiting or people that are queuing, here is your spot, right?
Yeah.
Don't be in the middle. Don't just spread around. Like you can be here and there's space for you, while other people can just continue to walk by. So I think a lot of it it's about being purposeful about how we're defining the space and how we're defining the circulation. So somewhere in between. Like
It just from the plans, it looked like it was a lot more green and less like, place.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you show on your plans where they would be queuing?
Yeah, like even here, right? So, I mean, there's these areas here that are, can be defined conceptually for gathering, for not queuing, right? But like, so a lot of people, groups come here and they have to wait like, an hour to actually get into the boat and do the queue, right? But like that, but they're still in the Esplanade, they're just standing there, like, they're putting their backs on the ground. Like here is an area where you can actually like sit. There's sitting, there's flexible sitting or different types of sitting types in there that you can just gather as a group away from the main circulation that's here. We've also looked at this zone here, which is kind of where the line happens, right? So trying to say like, well, the Esplanade experience might be down here, and that's still open and accessible, but like the markings in the ground could tell you, or the type of paving that we use could say like circulation goes that way, and I can stand here and stop, right?
Was there any thought given to multi-levels, like a big ground floor, and if you go upstairs, you can hang up there too, but you can move people off.
Like created by level Esplanade?
Yes.
More complicated than.
I would suggest that because it's so open now, it's just a mess.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
we're just proposing,
Yeah.
we'll organize it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that you're going to accommodate the Circle Line users. Right now, for me, it's not a destination. I walk to Chelsea, I
Yeah.
walk to South
Yeah.
to enjoy the park.
Yeah.
I'd like it to be a destination for those of us in the community as well,
Yeah.
as opposed to just a wave.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is important to say that I think Jadel did a very good job of describing the idea about like a waiting room and there's a whole bunch of kids, but that is very much not for Circle Line. That is
Correct.
everybody's picnic area if that's the direction we're going. So if that's, if the tables are full of local people, that's like they're full of local people, that's great too.
And I also feel like if there's tracks there, we're more likely to treat it like a park as opposed to a waiting park, waiting section for
Yeah,
someone.
understood.
And yeah, you would
Yes, thank you. My name is Jessica Smith and I'm part of the West 43rd Street Block Association. One question and one comment. Question is, all of the work that goes into from your beginning of this project to finish, is time a consideration at all? Specifically, like time to construct idea A or B? I'm wondering about that just for us between this or wherever the idea ends up being to, when we can use it, whether that's a consideration. And then my second comment, at risk of sounding unhinged, but believing that in my community, and I'm not the only person who has come up with this opinion, community, the dog run itself, as greatly used as it is not the only consideration for people with dogs in this neighborhood. So when we're talking about, congestion and safety of being able to move around, could please not lose in the design that people are walking with dogs and also want to be able to use this whole space in a responsible way.
Thank you. I mean, I think maybe your first question was more about like if we choose to do one thing versus the other, if it takes longer time or not. I think that the range of ideas that we've been discussing here, we're working towards, documenting that all together, and we'll figure it out in the time frame that we're given.
Yeah, I mean, we started with this geographic area, which we said the last time, but we didn't this time, because this is the zone of the whole area from 29th to 44th where we can deliver new park fastest. We have more control over our own destiny here than we do in various areas to the south, and we would like to give this community some green space that we know we need.
Alright, I think it was here, and then here in the front, and then there in the back, and then here.
I know that it's a resource for everybody, not just for the community, but I feel like anything that is built that becomes great, that's in our community, becomes unusable for space gets dedicated to spaces for children. Now, I do, of course, children live in playgrounds. We've been trying to talk to neighbors, don't have places to play as adults, and to come together. And I used to live on the west side. One of the things that helped create that sense of community is when you're walking in Central Park, the way that it's designed, you're running into your neighbors, where it almost feels like you are going on a loop walk, and you start seeing the same faces over and over again. I don't know the specific nuances, but I'd love to see more of those types of pieces in the design into the space to bring those forces together and create those kind of interactions and.
Are there examples that you of places that you make you feel that way? I think I get exactly what you're saying, but maybe how.
I know that the Great Lawn
The Great Lawn.
serves that purpose on the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
So that any weekend, I didn't even have to make plans, I would just go to the Great Lawn on Saturday, and you know, I could run into people and pop down on a blanket with them.
Yeah.
And you walk, like people would walk around the loop, and you start seeing the same faces over and over again. Here, I don't make plans, I moved downtown 11 years ago. I don't make plans to just get together with somebody. I could go 3 years without ever seeing somebody I know, other than somebody in my building. And there have been a lot of forces in the last, since 2019, happening, coexisting. They're really been actively working to create a community where there has been none before. And to me, that's incredible. And I feel like it's a unique opportunity to really build on that and find a way to foster that intentionally. And I love the idea of designing a play space like water features that's for adults to play.
All right. Yeah.
So the whole little water park,
Yeah.
but with fountains and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to like safety and animals and everything, especially behind that building, you're talking about having a rain garden and like, a lot of the water impermeable areas, and that block between 11th Avenue and Route like 9A right there on 46 and 45th has some, it's like, yeah, just south of like where the prop image is and everything.
Oh, the part out?
Yeah. There's like a lot of dilapidated buildings and I see a lot of rats and whatnot. Is there gonna be like any sort of like pest protection to make sure that they don't move across into these green areas, especially with children and dogs, having a lot of rats in the water could be an issue.
So, I'll speak to that. I mean, we won't be able to stop them from moving
Of
over
course.
one way. But we can think about plants and burrowing opportunities and other things like that. That's what, like, a team like this can help us think about intentionally to make it less likely. But, you know, they're attracted to places with food. People that are, I mean, I'm curious for specifically, not the only place. We notice people that eat animals, eat pigeons there, that attracts rats. It's everybody in the parks business sort of tries hard to deal with this. We have more resources because we're dedicated to only this park than some parks do. So we have eyes on this exact area every single day. We try, but it is a challenge, and I'll be honest.
No, of course, yeah, like, I guess like the trash can design.
Yeah, exactly. Things like that are the things that we can try to do to be proactive about thinking about that concern.
Okay, as long as you're thinking about it.
Thank you, yeah, no, thank you.
There was like over there, yeah, and then.
My name's Dan. I lived in the neighborhood for the past 18 years, and I love Pier 84, but I find myself more often walking through it than spending time there, and more likely to go to Pier I, and I spend a lot of time thinking about what makes Pier I so successful, and I don't know what the secret is. Sure has nicer views maybe than this, but if we're gonna be planning for the success of a cafe or a vendor there, then we should prepare, I think, for that success and maybe expect it and provide more seating area around the fountain instead of the fitness area, which doesn't seem popular. Yep, maybe where the gym space was gonna go, and hope for the best, and because usually if you plan for it, it'll happen.
Did you say Pier I?
Pier I, so what do you call it?
Riverside. First time I hear about Pier I.
It's the one in Riverside Park South. I know it's the one But have you been to Pier 97? You have to pass that to get there.
Yes.
Marie is the booze that makes that pure.
Yeah, there's gonna be some important necessary, vehicle blockage, at several points along here, prevent turbulence. And is there any pre-thought about how to make those streets a lot more north and south to include some of that flexibility within their presence?
What do you mean within the security elements?
Vehicle,
Yeah, like bollards, but that doesn't look like bollards.
yeah, I mean, right now we're experiencing boulders and emergency barriers and a lot of that, I mean, I think almost everything in the park has been done since past incidents.
Yeah.
And this is a way to move forward is to have incorporate that without living that in an industrial way.
Security, yeah, okay, that's great comment, yeah. But I think there's many ways that we can think about that, yeah. Integrated, yeah, maybe it's a wall, maybe it's yeah.
Sculptural.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, did I miss someone? No, I did not have anyone in the queue, but let's go queue again. You over there in the back, okay.
Very briefly, I'm both a frequent pedestrian and cyclist to this area, and although it's a very straight portion of the bike path, there are, I count 5 crosswalks in this section, and the visibility is very poor from the bike path, and as a pedestrian, people often cross without having any visibility of oncoming bikes. And I'm wondering, obviously, that has something to do with the fact that there are tall trees along most of the path here, which I would not want to see go, but if there's any way to improve, crossing areas, because you often see very large groups of people waiting to cross, and there's not enough space for them to wait safely without
And maybe
walking
add
out.
some bushes or something so that it makes it difficult to cross in between.
I mean, I think that, the landing points are key, right? So that's where we're kind of looking. And there's other examples in the rest of the park where I think there's more space and things work better. So those are definitely considerations that we will take.
Yeah, I'm also gonna say, I hope you're aware that if you're not, our partner agency, the State Department of Transportation right now, is going through its own study process for, ideas to rethink the whole Route 98 corridor for 4 miles. They don't have all the funding for this and everything yet, but they actually had a big community meeting last week, and they have a Zoom one next week, Robert?
June 10th, I believe.
Monday.
It's on the 3rd, June 3rd. It's on our events calendar.
June 3rd. So I would encourage everybody who has opinions about bikes, bike lanes, crosswalks, what we call them pedestrian reserve areas, your kind of question. All of these kinds of things, the State Department of Transportation is in listening mode right now. We're all participating, many others are as well. It's a very, very good opportunity for all of us to talk about the types of things you're raising. And on our side of the bikeway, point taken. Yeah.
And when is that? Or Monday? Oh, the second?
I was just gonna clarify that
June 3rd.
our side of like investigation and all of it is just west of the bikeway.
Yeah, a
So
lot of our
bikeway east is on Monterey was mentioning now, and bikeway west is.
Can you just, on that illustration, I'm having a hard time reading the text. Can you clarify what the shaded area is?
It's a vehicular access area. So in parts of that, that's where the MTA stop is. And
So that whole entire, that's a significant area.
This is there are like, areas of access to the pier, which is a parking lot, right? So in and out, there's also loading and unloading, and areas for, the drop off, school buses and things
And
like
so
that.
the green on, to the west of it, that kind of forms the ridge, that's a bit of a buffer zone.
Yes,
between-
correct,
okay.
correct, yeah, yeah. And this hashtag is the area that we're still studying, so like, again, we're looking into, making that area also more efficient together with the partner agencies and whatnot. Sorry, did I skip someone? I did skip someone. It's over there and then,
Thank you for having this. I'm really glad to be here. 84 is my go-to here, just because I'm living on 44. And I just wanted to share some of the things that I really liked so far, and then I have a couple of questions. I love all the expanded greenery, especially the rain garden, and I am an outdoor and fitness kind of person, so I actually like that. My go-to one is on the Riverside Park South. So if it doesn't happen here, I'm fine with just going to that one, but I do like it, especially along the bikeway, having that access point because it is so active. So cool that you incorporated that. And then I don't know if in zone 4 that was just an inspiration, but I love the labyrinth idea. My questions were around the plants and the lighting. I'm curious, you guys mentioned native gardens and native plants. I guess can somebody talk a little bit more about like how you guys are deciding what sort of plants you're gonna be putting in here?
I mean, there's a couple of different considerations that we take. So the idea of using native vegetation, which is vegetation that will grow typically in this climate and this zone. It's almost kind of like a given now in many projects, right? We do that all the time. So we have a selection of plants that work in this environment. We know them really well. The other consideration is the proximity to water, right? And the river. So there are certain types of plants that actually do better in an environment like this. It's not only water, but also this is a very urban and next to a highway environment. So we also have to consider plants that are resilient to that, right? That can withstand the heat, the pollution, the things that are happening right next to them and still look great. And the third aspect that I want to say is that, I think as part of Houston Park and this project and throughout the city, the work that we do, we're also trying to increase biodiversity, birds and pollinators and things like that that actually help our environment and create a healthy ecosystem in this park. So plants that support that, we know them really well, and there's plants that also Hospital Park Trust knows really well that they have used in other parts of the park that we'll also introduce that into the planting fabric that we use here because they're easy to maintain and provide a lot of value, right? So.
Yeah, that sounds like all green flags for the pollinators and the birds. For the lighting, I love that it's safety, but it's also fun with the whimsical artistic. For the nature side of it, how might those be designed sustainably so that it doesn't disrupt the nocturnal wildlife and cause all this extra light pollution? Maybe I don't know, solar, or is it downward facing?
Yeah.
Is that being taken into consideration?
Yeah. I mean, there's very technical thing that's called dark sky. Like we're not putting light that shines upward into the sky and as much anymore. It's not almost not allowed to do that. It has to shine down so that you don't disrupt birds and other migratory animals that are flying around and they are guided by moonlight instead of light. So that's definitely a consideration. And not so much. Very recently, I was involved in a panel talking with a lighting designer talking about the effects of light and insects and insect population declining and many of them being attracted to light and how you could design lighting that takes that into consideration as well. So either no light so that the natural cycles appear or happen, or also using light to kind of guide those cycles as well. So anyways, a personal interest that we could think about a little bit here too.
Adela, I'd like to just add something from a park-wide perspective. We always are very careful with our lighting. Like you said, not lighting up. We never light up. But we're also very careful not to light the river. Also, we don't want to pollute the river with light either because of the habitat. And I also want to mention about the plant selection. We also assume that this is going to flood. So all the plants are also selected to tolerate brackish water flooding to the best that's possible. And that's all the infrastructure as well. We just assume that this is going to be submerged once it comes. And so we design all
to be touched otherwise, like moved or whatever, but I don't think that's.
It's not, I mean, our budget, for this project goes all the way down to 29th Street, so we need to, make sure that we can get all the way down to
Well,
29th
we're increasing green in the ground, so that means that's kind of better than the green plants.
But that doesn't mean we can't sort of add a, hope for project to the hope for list for the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the points that we wanted to do with the rain garden is not just to capture the water that falls on the pavement, but I also want to try and connect the roof to that rain garden. So all the water that currently falls on the roof, it goes into the pieces and we capture it in the rain garden.
What do you capture?
What's that?
Like when you capture the water, what's the purpose of doing that?
It does a number of things. One, we have a great green area. But also all that water in a rain event, the DEP, the city's sewer system gets inundated with rainwater and it short circuits and it puts the sewage directly in the river. So citywide, all parks, especially us, and many owners of buildings, we're all trying to reduce the amount of rainwater that gets inputted into that system. So the more we can contain on our site during the rain event, the better it is for the river and for a lot of people.
And it just percolates in the ground.
Yeah, and because it's a rain garden, then you also, the water gets used by the plants, so like it's less water that goes out, right? I had there was a question in the back, and I don't know, Miss, if you still have your question, and then your question, and then, question here.
I am here late because this is part of the issue that I didn't know about. It's an absolute fluke I found out about this meeting, which I think is really important, and I'm glad you're here, thank you. So if I say anything you've already discussed, please stop me. I understand about the east side, west side of the highway, but for example, if I walk across 44th Street, where I live, the block between 11th and 12th is truly dangerous. I'm tired of people peeing on buildings, I'm tired of drug deals, I'm tired of all of that, but if you walk across there, it's not just me, it's people with children going to the traffic, going to the parks, it's truly dangerous. I called the city for months about a street lamp, which is supposed to be looked at within 10 days, and I know other people have called also, but this went on for months and months, maybe half a year until they finally put one light. But it's not dealing with the danger part, so I think a lot of people don't go because of that. That's what I do. Then you get to the park. 44th Street, Pier 84 is my local here. I find it to be this refreshing, beautiful place. The problems are that there is almost never anyone from the Parks Department around. So if I'm sitting way down at the end to watch all the little water traffic, or watch all the air traffic, and have a little relaxing time, when there's somebody next to me with a hookah, and I've got sparks and embers coming towards me, and I can't find anybody to say, potential danger here on the boardwalk. That's a problem. This is a beautiful grassway, which of course is attractive to everyone, including the dogs. Big sign, don't bring your dog here. There are always dogs there. During the daytime, there are
generating something better. I realize that it's all connected to money, who's gonna do it, but there is that building there with the roof, and that would be such a great spot, if that could happen.
Well, I'll just say, we have a 4-mile park, so Hudson River Park is not the city parks department. It's a 4-mile park that goes from Chamber Street to 59th Street. We do have a 24/7 number that you can call if you observe a problem. That doesn't mean that the limited number of officers that are covering the whole 4-mile footprint that has many dozens of tiers will instantly be able to get there. I will tell you that I believe that we have more coverage, more eyes on Hudson River Park because we are lucky that we are our own entity as compared to the city parks department that has everything. We're a financially self-supporting park, so we have to make our own, money for security and everything else like that. But we have more eyes on it and more dedicated security than like an average city park. It is an uphill battle. Everybody, open space, people feel like they get to do what they want. And, you can't actually give people tickets all the time. It actually doesn't work. Our officers are trained to try to educate people, please use the dog run. If you don't like this dog run, we let the dog runs. I mean, there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle. I'd be happy to talk to you more about some of your observations at some point. I'll give you my number.
Thank you. And thank you.
My name is Rebecca, I live on 35th Street. I want to echo the comment about nature and also just say that, excuse me, I was there at the original meeting where there were so many of us, and I just can't believe how beautifully you captured all the feedback and how happy I would be. Everything that you showed is gorgeous, and I would be delighted with it. And, we were talking about enchantment and having things that were sort of whimsical or different from other parts of the park, and I feel like that's what this is doing. I personally would love to have the rain garden behind that building because I feel like it kind of separates the whole area from the street, and I think it's a great idea. So I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that everybody's not feeling the same about some of these things, and I just think it's a problem if we begin to try to defensively design to solve all city problems, which we can't. We can't solve homelessness or the rats, but we can create gorgeous, respectful environments for nature that bring people together in community. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we haven't heard from you, and then we go back to the thing.
Hi, I'm with Hudson River Park Friends, but I'm making this comment as a park user. I think in terms of the whimsy and intergenerational play, I think there's definitely some opportunities here to kind of mix all of those goals together, including with seating, with shade structures. I think we can all agree that this is a really hot part of the park, and anytime up there in the summer can get pretty brutal. And as great as that, I've gotten some comments while in the park from people, why isn't there more shade on Gansmore, for example? And the only thing I can respond to is, well, the trees haven't grown yet. Maybe something that does have a little bit more of an immediate impact, but between lighting, I think like the Pier 97 shade structure is a really good example of I don't know how, whether you consider it a success or not at this point, it's opened up there, but I think that's a really good example. I think the Pier 26 swinging seats out on there, I think is also a really good example that you can see, multi-generational families utilizing. And mixing all that with maybe some natural features, since we're not necessarily incorporating a full-on playground here. Maybe we don't need a full-on playground, but I guess maybe the Governor's Island sort of natural play features might sort of come to mind maybe in that first zone. But I think what I just mentioned probably most applies to that first zone, fourth and fifth, but also in the rest of that section as well.
All right, it's 8 o'clock, so maybe one or two less comments, or one last comment, and then we'll kind of talk about next steps.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right, Heather.
I was just gonna come back to, you had asked me a question of ideas, of examples, and what I realized is comparing Christopher Street here to Gansevoort Beach. Christopher Street, I feel like people are very cliquey, like if you go alone, people are not being social. Versus Gansevoort Beach, not only have I seen the same people over and over again when I go 2 weeks in a row, but there are natural interactions that pop up, and so many things about the way that space is designed. The beach part, the picnic tables are, people use it as a working space. It really, everything about it really fosters those kinds of connections and sense of people being friendly and engaging. And so I wanted to.
This is great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's right here in Esplanade Park. So.
And I'm in love with that space. And I also wanted to ask if there's been any thought to extend the usage. So for example, I mean, there are only so many hours in the year that the weather's nice and it's light outside and it's warm, and unfortunately with climate change, that only decreases. So ways to extend the usage at night when weather gets unbearably hot or cold or rainy beyond the obvious seasons. Are there things that are kind of being thought through on that level?
More of a nighttime program here.
Do you mean enclosed space?
I'm just like, basically, for most people that live in the area, most people don't have room in their apartments, it becomes your backyard. And the reality is that the rest of the time you're hiking. And I'm realizing that climate is a factor, so there's that reason to start thinking about it more. There hasn't really been so much of it. And I think we have an opportunity to start thinking creatively, how can we extend, I think my rooftop, whether it's fire pits or shelter, shade, there are things that we can, in Saudi Arabia, they started installing these mist systems everywhere so that when it's 120 degrees out, it's also pleasant outside. Are there ways that we can start thinking about that so that we can basically have much more usable?
Yeah. Understood. Well, one thing I would say, if you have not been inside Pier 57
Which I
yet,
love.
which has an indoor public living room, as well as a beautiful rooftop park, it's at 17th Street, South of Chelsea Piers. That is indoor public space that, you know, when you have nothing to do on a rainy day or a cold day, you're on the rooftop, you got a killer view, and it's free.
Where is it?
Pier 57 is
that's right.
yeah.
And maybe there's one last comment, and then.
Yes, just two thoughts that I had. One was around the shaded seating. I wondered if we could use native trees instead of umbrellas or structures in that way, just for comfort, resilience, and habitat creation, just like a lot of benefits there. And then my last one, I wanted to comment on the educational signage. I don't know what exactly is meant to be on that, but for me, I'd love to see more education around pollinators and native plants, or stormwater management, being so close to the water. I like how in the Riverside Park there's native plants and a boardwalk where people aren't going to be in it. So, and there's also some signage there. So I don't exactly know what you all are thinking about the educational signage, but just wanted to speak my 2 cents on that.
That's great to hear. And we heard about history, we hear about nature, and sort of innovation opportunities around all of those. Right? Great feedback. Thank you so much, everyone.
I want to thank, first of all of you for coming out on a rainy night to give us your feedback. I think we got some really great feedback. I want to thank the Marble team. I think we're heading on a really good track to give you a great park. And just to give you an idea of the next steps, we're going to take what we heard tonight, synthesize it. We're going to discuss internally with the design team, and we plan to return to the CB4 Park Waterfront Environment Committee on June 12th to sort of give a summary of what we heard tonight, maybe talk about how our concept direction can respond to what we heard tonight, and then, you know, move farther into design. So this is still early in the process, but we're getting there, and we're really happy we could bring you in early on to make sure you're